Hey everyone, welcome to the Love Beacons discussion this week, and Lynn's here in my home. I've set up a little studio for us, and welcome to Roger who's on the call. So we're going to have a general discussion, and we're going to also talk about the up and coming elections as well. So shall I do an alignment?
Yes, please, yes.
Oh, and here's Simon and Julie. Wonderful. Just wait for them to come on. Hi Simon, hi Julie, welcome. So we've set up a little studio here in my home. I'm just going to do an opening alignment, and we're going to talk about some sort of major topics. So, and then we'll come to everyone. So I'm just going to mute all participants, but you can unmute yourselves. Okay, cool. So as always, it's a really good practice just to fully land in the space with these calls, and a really good way to do that is just by calming the nervous system with 3 long deep breaths in through the nose and blowing out slowly over the bottom lip. And as you're doing those breaths, just consciously drop from mind into heart, the mind trying to work it all out, trying to logically fathom everything, dropping into the heart, which knows the entire wisdom of the universe. And coming out of everything that happened this morning, all of the rushing to get here. I know Lynn has just driven over from Melton Mowbray, and I've been rushing back from a freedom event in Derby last night. Coming out of everything that we have to do later today, so that we can be fully present in the now moment where all of the power is. So feeling the support of the earth beneath your feet, feeling the support of the chair beneath your sitting bones, and yeah, really being present to what is and what is coming up. So it's been a big week for stories, and there's 2 stories that I particularly wanted to touch on, but did you want to start with anything then? I know you've got
I'm supporting my heart chakra, yes. It's a little bit coffee at the moment, sorry about that. But no, carry on with the main stories. That's
yeah, so there's a couple of really big things, and this always happens to me when I drive home and I'm listening to Radio 4 just to tune in to what's being dished out. So of course the latest breaking story, which is happening today, and I'm reading this from Reuters, London, February 28th. Britain is descending into mob rule, and police will do more to protect the country's democracy, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said on Wednesday, after the government announced extra funding to keep lawmakers safe. Many British lawmakers have said the abuse directed at them has become more intense since October 7th, Hamas attack on Israel that sparked the war in Gaza, with some fearing for their safety if they air their views on the conflict. Last week, Parliament descended into chaos as tensions flared over a vote on Gaza, with the House of Commons Speaker citing frightening threats against lawmakers for a decision to break with usual parliamentary procedure. There is a growing consensus that mob rule is replacing democratic rule, and we've got to collectively, all of us, change that urgently, Sunak said at a meeting with police chiefs on Wednesday, according to remarks released by his office. Now, I wanted to share some comments which were posted in a group on Facebook, on Fakebook. Now, this is a group called Bakewell and surrounding villages. So we're not talking about a political or activist channel here. We're talking about the local, very parochial, very conservative Bakewell and surrounding villages. And these were comments after the Derbyshire Dales Council announced the result of last week's Bakewell by-election, where the turnout was 30, it says here 35%, it's something like 34.5%. And here are the first 3 comments. Alex Birch, poor turnout. Martin Ward, apathy. Everyone is sick of politics and politicians at every level. Jim Stiles, yes, a very poor turnout. People have lost faith in politicians. Now, those were just the top 3 comments, and there was a whole string. There was 153 comments with so many people echoing the same sentiment. So this idea, I mean, it's really interesting that, and I was reading a book of the greatest speeches of all time. And there's a lot of speeches in there, like, for example, in the suffragette movement, where they were saying in these speeches that if people have lost faith in democracy, if people cannot get their voice heard through the systems which are meant for the people to represent themselves, the only alternative that they have is to actually take to the streets and peacefully protest, which is a fundamental common law right. They would say it's a human right. We know that all human rights are based in common law rights. It is our common law right to peacefully protest. So it's very interesting that Rishi Sunak is now having to smear these peaceful protests and call them mob rule to create a kind of fear amongst the masses that, oh my God, there's going to be an uprising and it's going to descend into chaos and no one's going to be able to cope, because this is people standing up and saying, no, we've had enough. So that's the first thing I wanted to raise. So I don't know if you want to say anything on that, Lynn. Well, and we'll come to you, and then there's a second story, but we'll come back to that.
So on that, I think for those of us who've been following it from 2020, it's pretty obvious that they're now trying to get us all to call for the end of democracy. That they're basically wanting us to say democracy doesn't work and that there must be some other alternative, which obviously they want to be their stakeholder capitalism Agenda 2030 thing. So that's their agenda. Now, from my point of view, democracy has always been mob rule, or has the potential to be mob rule, unless we have the trial by, even if you have the trial by jury, really. No system, including democracy, is a real, proper, legitimate one if it doesn't enshrine the individual sovereign rights, is my opinion. So individual sovereign rights over everything else, over what the masses think, that doesn't matter. It shouldn't violate individual rights. So what they're trying to get you to say is, oh, we've abandoned democracy, you know, we need something like the wonderful UN to come in and save us and put some rule in place. Now, for me, I think our message has to be the alternative to democracy is actually the next phase up, not ruled by the people, but actually ruling ourselves, being our own sovereigns. And yes, people call that anarchy, a very besmirched word, but anarchy is actually a very beautiful thing. It means taking complete responsibility for ourselves and determining how we act with our own spiritual well-being in mind. So the ultimate responsibility, really. We have, you know, if we are sovereigns of our own destiny, our own the way we act, of everything that we do, it's up to us to make sure we commit no harm, that we do no harm to anyone, and that we always act in the highest interests of everybody. And if we do something wrong, we definitely put it right, and it all comes down to us. All comes down to us. So the alternative for me is to democracy, is the next stage up, which is self-sovereignty, being our own sovereigns, taking complete responsibility for ourselves, and then for the wider community, you know, for people who are not so able to, you know, giving the helping hand where we can without violating anyone else's sovereign rights. So we need to sort of get that message across, that we need to be doing things ourselves, or at least, you know, as communities, ourselves first, communities next, and not falling for that con trick of democracy hasn't worked, we must have some higher power come in and save us. We've really got to get away from their message and put ours out. It's my opinion. Yeah.
Does anyone want to comment on that, and also anything you want to raise today later in the call? So Julie?
Yeah, we need to absolutely minimise any rules and regulations. Every person is different, and we need to support people as much as seems right to be able to be integrated into their own community and into the sort of other communities and national community. And this impression that they're trying to give of mob rules, that's just showing how many people are realizing what's wrong about what's happening. And so it is a very positive sign, but we've still got some chaos to go through before we actually come through it. And we've just got to keep being peaceful, positively asserting, and keep voicing for people as best we can. So thank you very much, both of you, for all you're doing.
Thanks, Julie. Roger, you got your hand up. Do you want to unmute?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the very subtle propaganda in reports of which you've just read one out. They're referring to these MPs as lawmakers.
It's complete propaganda.
Very subtle, very subtle. They are not lawmakers. They're legislation makers.
Yes.
Vast difference. And this is what comes out of the bloody arsehole of the Parliament all the time. They're calling what they're doing, which is legislation, basically tyranny, they're calling it law.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's very, very subtle.
That's a great point.
Very good point, Roger. There's a big difference between lawful and legal. And we know our common law rights cannot be removed by any government or any authority without our consent. It's the fundamental principle of common law rights.
Yeah.
So thank you for raising that.
That's a brilliant point, actually. That when you're talking about attacks on lawmakers, no, they're not attacks on lawmakers, and law is not breaking down. It's on legislation makers, as you pointed out, Roger, and legislation enforcers. And law is absolutely being upheld by keeping these people to account. You know,
yes.
By keeping legislators to account, the law is being upheld. We have to, it's our duty actually to try, to prevent harm to ourselves. We don't just lie down and go, oh yeah, attack me. It's absolutely our duty to defend ourselves and our families.
Yeah.
And those who aren't so able to defend themselves, we're all pretty strong, at least mentally. So we have to look after those who are not in that position.
Yeah, I mean, a classic thing for me is all of the legislation around public highways. So speeding and bus lanes. Now, we the people own the public highways. ULEZ is another big one, obviously. We the people own the public highways. In truth, no one has the right to dictate to us about our use of those public highways. So provided we're causing no harm, injury or loss to our fellow man, we don't need to have dictations about what speed. If we're responsible citizens, if there's children around, we'll slow down to 20 or even 10 miles an hour. If it's a completely deserted nighttime and there's no hazards, then if you're going 34 miles an hour in a 30 limit, you're not causing any harm, injury or loss. You're not a danger. And we can be self-regulating. We don't need this overlay of authorities to tell us what we can and can't do on roads that we the people own. Julie?
Yeah, on that, what we could have is some advisory ones. And I mean, we've got a local road just outside Mansfield that you can go at the sort of legal speed limit, which because it's a single carriageway, you could be going 60 miles an hour. They've not even got proper road markings on a blind corner. They've even got it without solid lines. So people that don't know the road could easily think, oh, I'll overtake here when they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
But also the way that I know potholes is one of my big things. The way that they are still not doing anything. And Ben Bradley is still promoting that, oh, they're getting such and such grants. He's not being held to account properly for the dire state of the roads that they are. And they've not been like this for the over 60 years of my life. And they are causing more harm. And I even heard of someone who was significantly injured through hitting a pothole on a bike.
Yeah,
and
we heard, Carrie was telling me of someone who died because they hit a pothole. He'd been doing the same road for 70 years or something. This old chap. went
Yeah.
over his handlebars and died because he hit a pothole. It's just absolutely disgusting, and that is causing harm.
Yeah.
You know, that's causing harm. So, I mean, I've just come back from Austria, but I could have said any country in the world, actually. When you go abroad, you notice how third world our roads are. There's no spending on them. It's, you come, you know, you go there and it's all flat, it's all safe, it's all good. There was no speed cameras between Innsbruck and where we went, which was over an hour and a half. Wonderful tunnels taking you through the beautiful countryside, so you weren't seen. You know, it didn't deface the landscape. And here, you come back here and it's like, what the heck? And then there's a flipping camera. You're like, well, I can't go any faster because I'm going to bust a tyre. So I'm going to say Tories, surveillance, not safety.
Yeah. Roger, did you want to speak again? Have you re-raised your hand? And also Simon, do you want to speak?
Yeah, I'm trying to find out about registering for being a candidate, and they're not being very transparent about that. They keep referring me to, you know, other websites. They don't just simply expressly answer the question. It's always, oh, refer to this, refer to that. And actually, I have, I don't like to use the word registered, but I've registered with a Zoom meeting regarding the mayoral election. They call it the hustings, and it's actually with regard to road safety, and I've registered with that, and so I would have been included in that, but I have to go for this pacemaker on the same day, so I can't participate. And they've told me that the answers to my questions will be on that day. Of course, they don't know about my small operation. So it seems I won't be able to get the information that I need. And the information is, you know, how, when, and where do we deposit this £500 that they're fraudulently wanting?
Have you got someone that could go on your behalf, Roger,
To where?
to the meeting when you're having your pacemaker fitted? Is there somebody else who could go on your behalf?
Well,
Meeting, not the pacemaker.
it's a Zoom meeting, actually.
Pardon?
It's a Zoom meeting.
Right,
Zoom.
okay. Well, could somebody from...
Well, we could. One of us could go on. I'm happy to go on.
Well, I can send you the
Yeah,
Zoom
please do.
details, can't I?
I mean, as I understood it, I thought that the applications for these mayors only opened like 6 weeks before the election date. So this is how they've. I mean, if you look at Wikipedia, they won't acknowledge me as a candidate for East Midlands mayor, and it's completely controlled. So that they will acknowledge Conservative and Labour candidates, and there is one other independent, but so far they've refused to acknowledge me even as a candidate, even though I have announced it and I've done a whole election campaign. The by-election featured my mayor campaign. So the whole thing is completely fixed, and this is the point. Democracy is broken because it's so completely unfair. It's completely stacked in favour of the red and blue Punch and Judy show. And independent candidates, you know, we don't have as much funding, we don't have as much exposure. So Julie?
Yeah, isn't this weird, this Zoom? It now, when I put my hand up physically, it appears on the flipping thing. I don't know how that has happened. I've not set it. But anyway, the deposit, Roger, when you put your candidacy forms in, you will be asked then to pay the deposit. And I can remember I had to pay it, and yeah, they just talked me through it at the time. Yeah.
So Roger, before the call you wanted to get clarity about campaign donations, so let's cover that point off now. So let's make it clear to everyone. So number one thing is we are really calling, so Roger, Julie, myself, and anyone else who's standing as a candidate, we're all independents. We don't have a huge pots of money to draw on. So if you can support us, that would be really appreciated, because it costs thousands of pounds to do election campaigns, not just the £500 deposit to stand, but also the cost of all of the leafleting and marketing sort of material. Because you do get a free mail shot to everyone in your constituency, but you still have to pay for that leaflet to go through the doors.
I don't think it's free for the mayor, is it? Julie
No.
had to pay.
Well, so in the case of the mayor thing, instead of giving, like in East Midlands, there's 1.1 million, instead of giving 1.1 million mailings to every individual candidate, they clubbed together and they created a booklet, and each candidate then paid £750 to go in it, and to make the economies of scale, basically, and they sent it to everyone because there's over £1 million.
So what's the £500 deposit for if you then have to pay another £750 to get your distribution?
Yeah, because
there we go.
Well, so you pay the £500 deposit to stand, but you also get a free mail shot to everyone in your constituency. But because of the mayor thing, is to over 1 million people, it's prohibitive for every candidate, I imagine, to do 1 million mailing. That would be prohibitive. It would be hugely expensive. And so instead, to make it fair, what they did with Julie was make a booklet and asked everyone to contribute £750. I think there were 5 candidates. Julie were there, and they put out a booklet, and you drew lots for the order which you appeared in, but it still costs money, basically. So I just want to get back on point. So we're really welcoming your contributions if you're able to support us, and what we're suggesting is that you send cash. And the reason we're suggesting that is because we know from the Love movement that we've had 2 bank accounts closed down for receiving political donations. Now, with these, they deliberately make the rules on donations complicated. You can get the full information on the Electoral Commission, and I will put the link below in the notes to this video. But basically, anything up to £50 can be accepted without question. The minute it gets above £50, that counts as a political donation and has to comply with the rules. And the rules are, again, quite complicated, but basically you can only accept over £50 from someone who is on the UK electoral register. So if someone's not on the electoral register, strictly speaking, you can't accept money from them. And you have to give it back to that person. And if you don't know who sent it and you can't verify it, you receive over £50. If we receive that and we can't verify that that person is a qualifying person, and we can't return it to the person because they haven't given their name and address, for example, we have to give it to the Electoral Commission, which offers it up into the kind of government coffers. Now, that doesn't stop people from giving over £50, but they have to meet these qualifying limits. Now, when the minute you get to 500, I think it's either over 500 or 500 or over.
It's 500. You can go up to 4. You can donate 499.
Yeah,
and be
so
fine.
After £500, it has to be declared public. It goes into the public domain, so that big donors are public, so that the electorate know who is backing. So if you've got a big donor, like if I received £10,000 from Rishi Sunak to stand, for example, I would have to declare that so that people could see that Rishi Sunak was backing me, do you see? Or if I suddenly received £10,000 from Pfizer, not that I would accept £10,000 from Pfizer or Rishi Sunak, but if I did accept it, because you don't have to accept any donation, you can hand it back to them. So sorry, I'm not accepting it. But if you do accept it and it's £500 or over, then it goes into the public domain. This is my understanding of the rules.
You have to declare it as you have to list it as a donation. You don't just have to be able to say, yeah, I can account for all mine. You know, everybody who gave to me is legit.
Yeah.
You have to list it and put it on your expenses form and your donations form when you do that return.
I'm just testing it's still working.
No, it doesn't work for us.
No, because we don't need
we're
to
the
put our
hosts.
hand on it, we're the hosts.
Yeah, when you've done the candidacy and the ballots happened, I think it was after then, you've got a form that you've got to fill in, but you've got it. So what I did was, as I got anything, I put it on the form so that I would remember what I'd got to do. And then you submit it within a certain amount of time after the ballots happened.
Yeah.
And you must do that whether or not you have expenses or whether or not you have any donations. You must submit that form,
Yeah.
otherwise they can have you for electoral fraud.
Yeah, and I will put below in the notes to this video, I will repeat the names and addresses for you if you feel that you would love to support either Roger, Julie, or myself in our campaigns. We'd really, really appreciate it, and I'll put the details below the video. Now, before I go on to the next stories, I'm conscious, Simon, you haven't spoken. Is there anything you want to speak into the group or issues you want to raise?
It's fun listening sometimes. Various points. So what Lynn was saying about democracy is broken. It's not broken. It's just run its course. It doesn't work for them anymore. It was never broken. It was always a system of control. And I printed it off because I was thinking there's the Frank Zappa quote, which is at the point when the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they will just take down the scenery. They will pull back the curtains. They will move the tables and chairs out of the way, and you will see the brick wall at the back of the theatre.
Yes.
That's basically what's happening. Doesn't work for them anymore, and they're desperately trying to reinvent themselves under the guise of stakeholder capitalism, but it's just fascism. It's what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for raising that.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see that what we've never actually known real democracy, and we've never actually known real capitalism either. It's always been central control.
But the most pertinent point, I think, going forward is that I have one simple rule, okay? We're living in a prison, and the prisoners run the prison.
Yes.
Every day I ask myself, if what I am doing, am I playing my part in helping to run the prison? And we're all compelled to a certain degree. The reason I clean windows for a living is because I don't answer to anybody. You know, I walked out on corporate jobs in my early 20s because I couldn't stand all the bullshit. And I'm really enjoying this time because more and more people are waking up. And the question is, do people wake up, or do they sort of become even more part of the prison wardens?
Yeah.
And what will be really interesting going forward is if, when the directives go out to the police to start going after these mobs,
Yes.
what will happen?
Yeah.
Because they did it in COVID, they got quite heavy-handed, in certain instances very heavy-handed, throwing kids on the floor and old people and whatever.
Yeah.
And they built the super prisons, haven't they? So there's big super prisons
The
now,
fellas.
all ready to receive
The family
us.
prisons, yeah.
Ready to receive
That
us.
might actually be a good time to bring in the next thing, which is about the whole the MRA.
Okay, well, let's move on to this.
Just one last point. I mean, on this,
Okay.
I thought it was a really big step forward when you made the decision to give up on trying to register as a political party. I feel we've still got one foot in both camps. I would be taking all the points you're saying. You won't win. None of you will win if you go down the road you're going down. I would just be accepting that, and I would be saying, raising all the points you're raising, and give people an alternative. Vote here. This is the person we want to, but for all these reasons, this person will not get voted. And what would be really interesting, going back to your Bakewell Facebook thread, those people who commented, how many of them actually didn't vote? Because they're sufficiently motivated to comment, but did they not bother to vote? People are not apathetic. As you say, they're losing faith in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the point. And so that's why people, and that's the word on the street when speaking to people when I was distributing leaflets, and it's like, no, I don't bother. No, I don't do politics anymore. I've given up on it. It's a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. So people are and particularly in the freedom movement, you hear this as people, I don't want to actually consent to this system. I don't want to actually, when I put my cross in that box, I'm consenting to the system, and I don't consent to the system anymore. I don't want to be part of it, and I just don't want anything to do with it.
Simon, are you saying we should set up our own ballot?
I think so. Maybe have somebody, I mean, I don't know what the rules are. Are you allowed to stand outside?
You can stand there, you can put a ballot, you can put a box to vote in. Of course you can. Who is going to stop you? You just
Why can't we do that? We're setting up our own ballot, because all this thing about how much you can donate, that's their rules again.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have got certain rules about how close you are allowed to be to the ballot place.
But that's only if you're a candidate, I think, is what you're saying. If you're a candidate, you have to. But if you weren't a candidate, you could run a parallel. What you're saying, Simon, I think, is you could run a parallel campaign with a ballot outside on the street, as you could be with a sandwich board and just accepting a separate ballot, which is like a none of the above. I mean, it's quite interesting seeing the spoiled papers on the count. There was a none of the above someone had scrawled, and one of the candidates said, "Oh, why did they even waste their time bothering to go?" I said, "Have you not heard about the none of the above campaign? That it's a legitimate campaign of why is there not a section to say none of the above? And if under none of the above, if the none of the above crosses get a certain percentage of the vote, then none of the above get elected."
And you have to hold the election again
With different,
What's happening
candidates.
in one breath you're saying the system's broken, and then the next you're saying how can we participate in the system? We can't have, well, I don't think we should
I
have
think what Rachel was saying is that you're actually, because there isn't a none of the above box, you're actually running your own thing for the people who want to vote
what
none
you're
of the
suggesting.
above.
Now, I just want to put it from my point of view, Simon. The reason why I have stood as a local election candidate is because I believed it was a very powerful way for me to get alternative messages to the people within my area, which they could not access, would not be able to access through tabloid newspapers or BBC or mainstream. And that's why my leaflet was absolutely pulling the curtain back on the theatre and showing the brick wall behind. That's why I stood. And that's why it was an act of devotion for me, because I knew I wouldn't win. I didn't do it to win it. I'm not doing East Midlands Mayor to win it necessarily. I'm doing it to expose the corruption and to expose the master plan, why they're introducing combined county authorities. Now, if there's a better way to do it and there's an alternative way, in addition to standing, let's do a parallel election, great. But it takes people to actually do something, to stand, to push the leaflets through the letterbox, to actually make that stand, to be prepared to stand as the candidate or to do the thing. But to just pontificate about it is not, it's just pissing in the wind as far as I'm concerned.
no, absolutely.
So my view is that there are, that this is one strand. The Democrat, we are using their system, if you like, to A, get our message out about the alternative system, and B, if should any of us win, we are able to pass and interrupt, and we're able to cushion what's going on. And the system is falling. I have absolutely no doubt that the system is not going to be there in a few years' time. Now, the thing is, it can be done in a chaotic way, or it can be done in an empowered way. So if we use this opportunity, and for a lot of people, elections, even subliminally, have some sort of legitimacy, so they're more likely to take notice of you if you're a candidate than if you're just someone ranting on a street corner. So this is an opportunity for us to say that the system, as we know it, is a little bit broken. We don't even have to say that, but we can say, look, there's this better way. There's this better way. There's this way of cooperatives, of private members clubs, which I think are both your contribution. There's this better way of doing things. We can grow our own food, we can grow it as communities, we can have mixed farms, we can have our own healthcare, which doesn't involve poisoning people and is not dependent on farmer. And we can put all that as a message out there. It's sort of almost a subliminal programming for what's coming, how we're going to build the new, because the top's coming down and we've got to build the bottom up. The top down, bottom up. So we've got to do, it's got to be both ways. And I'm just saying we're not having anything to do with this camp because they're wrong. Well, then you're disenfranchising a big proportion of the population. People that are looking, know there's something wrong, but they just don't know what the alternative is because they've, been very, very programmed. Yeah, all through school. I mean,
you saw that test, didn't you?
I was,
there's and then we'll come to you, Roger.
I just caught a clip on Tess Lowry's WCH website, and sometimes they have little video clips, and this was quite a long one, but it was talking about the mind programming that governments have been using on us for a long time, and it was extremely subtle. You wouldn't, things that you wouldn't have guessed. And they took they took 3 influencers, YouTube influencers, people whose life is about influencing people. And he's gave them you know, acted like he wanted to be an influencer and just wanted some tips. But he gave them each a bucket of mundane objects, really mundane, and some different settings around this sort of barn that they could take their photographs in. And they all went away, did their wonderful photos, made themselves look glamorous and everything, and came back. And when he asked them to pick out one out of their thousands of photos that they'd just taken, pick out one photo and a hashtag. And what they, every single one, the three of them, all came out with the ice cube tray across their face, sat on a swing that shaped like a watermelon, and the hashtag tray, as in tray, cool. And they're like, how did you make us do that? How did you make us? And what he'd done is, as he was talking to them, he'd just dropped in little words like, you know, oh, do you remember the song Ice Ice Baby? You know, do you remember that? Anyway, there's a, if we look at this, you know, oh, Trey Chic, he'd said, Trey Chic at some point, and something about swinging, the swinging 60s or something like that. Very, very, very subliminal. And with just those few cues, they had all chosen the same picture, and, you know, they'd gone with the group think. It was that easy to do. This is how the stage hypnotists work, how they get you to do what they do, and they've known it for a long time. They've known it since about, I think there was a book written in the 40s that was all about mind control. Behavioural psychology. It's about following. We're very, very programmed to follow the pack, because that's where we're safe. And the more in danger we are, the more we group together as the pack. So what government does is make us feel obviously very unsafe. They also try to shut down. They also shut down the brain with coffee. Coffee's a big one. It shuts down the frontal lobe. Looking at the TV screen, and I know we're doing that now a bit, shuts down the frontal lobe. Within about 20 seconds, you're not thinking. You're actually in a zombie state. You're using less of your brain than when you're asleep, when you're watching TV. And what was the other one? There was alcohol, there was caffeine, there was
all toxins.
Anyway, there was
Fluoride.
Yeah.
Well, these were the ones that government was getting you to do to yourself. So if you look in every film, in many, 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 many scenes, almost all of them, there are several images of coffee. They really want you to drink coffee because it shuts down your frontal lobe. So there's all this mind control that's been going on for a long time. So we have to do it the other way around. We have to subliminally drop the new paradigm.
It's pattern interrupting. That's, if you can pattern interrupt and you see it, it comes out of unconscious awareness into conscious awareness, and then you collapse the illusion because you've seen it. And
so it's
then
like,
oh,
there's another cup of coffee. There's another one.
Yeah.
And then, oh, look, they're doing it again. Yeah. It doesn't have the power that it does when it goes through your subconscious. Your subconscious is all about keeping you safe, which is about making you act as the pack. So until you're aware of it, you can't do much about it.
Let's just go to Roger and Simon. Roger?
Well, I just wanted to say, fluoriding yourself is self-inflicted by toothpaste.
Yeah.
Well, and often in the water supply as well now, Roger. There's only one water that doesn't have.
Well, yeah, but that's of a lesser danger than cleaning teeth, isn't it? Because
you can choose fluoride-free toothpaste. I have fluoride-free.
I've
stopped fluoride
people don't. People don't, though. Yes, you can. I agree. I know that.
Awareness through things like this, drip, drip, drip. When people are aware, then they start switching. So we need to be like model. We need to be setting,
showing it,
showing by. I mean, do you still use fluoride toothpaste, Roger?
Well, I've hardly got any teeth.
So I would highly recommend Richard Love's recent video about something to do with we're not being told what really makes us ill. And they do talk about fluoride in that and about accessing spring water. But of course, even the fields and everything are being so chemicalized that even different waters will be getting. But also we need to be in that place of love, not fear. Raise our vibration as best we can.
Yeah, your vibration can blow it out. You know, it can just blow out these toxins.
Yeah, and it can cleanse water as well. It can alter the.
Oh, there was an interesting experiment with water.
Yeah.
You know the lady who does the crystallography, takes photos of the water crystals.
Vina Austin.
Anyway, she put water next to the Wi-Fi, and then froze it and found these very disrupted patterns in the water, in the crystals. But then what she did was she not boiled it, she just melted it and did it again. And it became less disrupted and less disrupted. The water learned how to cope with it. It's amazing. And our bodies are mostly water. We can learn to deal with all the crap they throw at us. We really can. And we can just get it out of the system.
Simon?
Yeah, I'm just thinking whilst you're chatting there. I mean, are we saying our objective is to disrupt the system, not to win?
Well, I think
it's not an either or.
Personally, I think
more and more.
You know what? It's not an either or. It's how evolved the population is. I mean, if we won, for example, and became prime ministers, because I don't think there should be one. If that happened, I'd sort of see it as a halfway house. Not a failure, but it would mean that the country wasn't yet ready to go back to sovereignty and local communities. It was needing that extra bridge to bring down the system. So, I mean, either way is fine by me. I'd rather that we didn't have the system at all.
Well, like I said, I'm thinking whilst we're talking, I mean, it just occurred to me, one option maybe would be to have a campaign which is all about this planned interruption, but behind just one candidate in one seat. I mean, I was really hoping this thing of, finding the deposit for everybody right across the country, but the time's against us for that now.
We need to keep dropping seeds in as many places as we can.
But can we do that by focusing on one candidate, one person actually stand?
I think you can with the mayor, I think I think it's changed now with the mayors coming in. I do think you could do that, Simon, with the mayor campaign. Or even a police commissioner's campaign. I honestly think, because you might find that there are fewer people wanting it and fewer people realising the importance of the mayor campaign. Most people focus on the general. The mayor stuff is actually really, really crucial, because that's obviously the way they're going to bring in Agenda 2030, all the unpopular things that the politicians want to shy away from and want to say, oh no, it's nothing to do with us, it's the regionals, they're the ones doing it to you. They don't want that responsibility.
And also,
Simon, could you explain who you're thinking of a one candidate that we're going to focus on? What do you mean by that?
If everybody around the country who was interested in this was trumpeting the same message, the system is broken, it's corrupt, blah, 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 we don't expect to win, but we would like to get one person to actually win. And we're going to focus all our attention on this one person whilst raising the message nationally. But, I can't drive to Mansfield and Bakewell and whatever, but I'm not in a position to throw money away, as Julie knows at the moment, because I'm heavily invested what little money I've got into Chrysalis.
But this is why I think it's really good that we've got Rachel standing as a candidate for the East Midlands regional mayor, and also Roger for his regional mayor. I think those positions, hopefully Roger will have people that he'll be able to access that actually live in that area, or that region, should I say. And Rachel, I mean, she's already got me, and Rachel's already got me and Lynn in the same region. Yeah.
So can I just say that this is why it's important to drop to heart rather than being in the head trying to work it all out, because visioning and intention and imagination are super powerful. We don't need to know how the universe, the infinite intelligence, is going to work it out and organize it. It could be something coming from completely left field. If we keep visioning and imagining and focusing all of our energy on what we do want, and allowing the mechanics of that, and to just go with our instinct and what we feel, then to me, magic can happen. And whenever I've done like a magical manifestation, like for example, Crestbrook Dale was a magical manifestation, both in acquiring the land and the funding. That all came through a small group of women visioning, chanting, singing, making offerings in a stone circle up at Stanton in the Peak. Literally, we didn't have any clue about the land, we didn't have any clue about the money. It all came through infinite intelligence and divine guidance. And I'm a strong believer that there's incredible power in the universe, that we don't need to work it all out for ourselves, that if we drop to the heart and we keep, like, with intuition and use our third eye to keep visioning, pouring energy into what we do want, we can, and then going with our gut feel and going with the flow and just saying yes and showing up, even if it doesn't quite make sense, that magic can happen. I really strongly believe that.
Do the next right thing. I think we can't see the big picture, even though we think we've got it pretty sussed. Actually, from a universal point of view, we're pretty blinkered. So we do the next right thing. And the thing is, if we keep ourselves open, and I can absolutely vouch for this, the universe has bigger plans than you imagine for yourself.
Yeah.
That if you open it up, the universe will, if you limit yourself to, I want this, I want to be an MP in Westminster, blah, 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 blah. That's a very, from a universal point of view, very limiting. The universe could have a much, much, much bigger plan for everything. It could have upturning Westminster easily.
Yeah.
It could have a global movement that sees the whole world moving at the same time. A one world government.
No, strike that thought.
A one world non-government where everybody, I think this is happening globally. This is the first time that these things have moved in such synchronicity across the globe.
Like a unity consciousness.
There's a unit, the unity consciousness is really strong at the moment.
So I'm also amazed how Andrew Bridgen is coming to the fore in lots of different groups that I'm in. I was on a Conscious People's Network meeting this morning, and he was mentioned there and very positively from people throughout the world, not just in the United Kingdom. Yeah. And that's where I'm glad I've taken the role taking the role that I am with him as campaigns officer. So even if I keep doing what feels right with that, but also in other areas as well.
That kind of ties into what I want to share with the MHRA.
I'll just say it's a massive exercise in trust. It really is.
I'll just ask very briefly, Julie, does Andrew Bridgen expect to win as an independent?
Well, we're putting him forwards as Prime Minister, and this is what we're after. And you'd be amazed at how many contacts he's got globally.
He is winning, as far as I'm concerned. He is winning. Yeah. It doesn't need to actually become Prime Minister. He's already winning through his influence.
And when he's Prime Minister, we'll be able to have access to help and support him with getting this new system established. And
Roger,
I really
do you want to say something? Roger, I'm just conscious you've got your hand up.
Yeah, well, firstly, I'm in agreement with you about the decision of the universe, because I believe that every living thing in nature coalesces to directors. That's what I think. And we as mere mortals alone cannot figure out really very much of what the universe is planning. We can't. Yeah. And the other thing that I want to say, what I like, is the idea of abandoning the system completely. And I do like the idea of having our own ballot boxes, because on one hand, we're decrying the system, but on the other hand, we're supporting it. It's bloody crazy. What we're doing is crazy. We are.
Well, I mean, it is, but on the other hand, we are the bridging generation. The next generation is the one that's going to benefit from this, and we are walking with a foot in both camps to a large extent, and we are trying, to a certain extent you have to do that because you're trying to bring those along with you, and also you're trying to start the new system. So we are being a bit of a bridge. It's not very comfortable. Maybe the gap is getting a bit wide and we're starting to do the splits and we need to jump into one or the other. But yes, we do have a foot in both camps at the moment, and that's not a comfortable place to be. And that's why it's people who are quite strong that are doing it, and those who don't have that strength are either going along with the system or they've abandoned it completely. I just think we are trying not to abandon those who the system has got hold of, who are in the grips of a really malicious, malign system.
Yeah, and I just want to say on that point that some of the most powerful light workers and people who are consciously aware, their background has been heavily in corporate or heavily in politics
military or something.
Military, yeah. So a lot of us have got, like, for example, myself, I've got strong business and corporate background. So I know how the system works. I know how corrupt it is. And so from that place, I can bridge. I'm a hybrid model. I can bridge both worlds because I'm aware of it. I'm not like just a fully spiritual person who's never had any experience of the corporate world or business world or political world, you know. Now, I'm just conscious of time, and I really would like to just raise this last this story because I think it does tie in with Andrew Bridgen, and I think it also does tie in with premonition, advanced thinking. Because back in February 2021, I recorded a video called 21st Century Nuremberg Trials. It was deleted from YouTube, but it's still on Odyssey because I had a backup channel. And in that video, I featured UK Column doing the statistics of deaths post the vaccine rollout and how the deaths were spiking. And also Vernon Coleman, Dr. Vernon Coleman, the old man in the chair, he was crying at the early reports of all of the devastating jab injuries. We won't even call them vax, the experimental injection injuries post the rollout. And he was sitting in a chair crying, and I featured both those videos. And I said in that video, it's time to make individuals accountable. And amongst the individuals that I gave details and addresses and email addresses on the screen was June Rain of the MHRA. And I said, write to her personally, hold her personally accountable under the Nuremberg Code, and write to your MPs. So we now have this story which broke in the Telegraph, which Andrew Bridgen shared. 27th of February this week, MHRA failed to raise vaccine issues. Medical watchdog did not sound alarm over COVID jab side effects, MPs say, as they call for an investigation. Now, on the 26th of February this week, Dame June Rain, Chief Executive of the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, MHRA, has today announced she will be stepping down in the autumn after following 5 years in the role. So she's basically wanting to slip out of the back door and get off the hook. Well, I'm sorry, June, but you are accountable. You have blood on your hands. You could have stopped this in February 2021 when you received all those letters from me included and many other people and all the MPs who were copied in. You could have stopped this in 2021, but you didn't. And here we are, we're 3 years on, and there's thousands of excess deaths and vaccine injuries, jab injuries. Shame on you. There need to be Nuremberg trials. We need to hold these people accountable. They can't be allowed just to slip out of the back door because it's all of these order followers, just following orders. I was just following orders. Yes, we need to take out the top level of the cabal that is behind this satanic, I don't even know what you call it.
Vampiric class, yeah.
The satanic agenda that is being for the total control and population of the population and the mass genocide of the people. It's not just the cabal, it's all of that level of executives and chief executives and politicians and order followers who are not questioning a thing and who are just doing what they're told. If that whole level stopped and said, no, we refuse to do this. With the police, with this mob rule thing, the police said, no, we are going to follow our oath. We are here. We swore an oath to protect the people and their property, and we're not going to get involved in political agendas. We're going to stand by the people, which is what our oath said. If everyone said that, if all of the doctors and nurses, and you said this about, there was a statistics about jabs, they all stopped doing these jabs, it would be game over overnight. This is the point we're at
and
now.
We know you know, and you know that we know that you know. So the NHS had a report. I looked at Dr. Cartland's channel, and he was saying that over 70% of NHS workers have not had, in 2023, have not had a COVID or a flu jab. They know.
Or booster.
They know. And we know you know, and you know we know we know. So you're accountable, and if you're going to, you know, if you keep quiet now, I'm sorry, you're going to find that you're well, that you're held accountable. It's time to, I think they'll be queuing up to blow the whistle now. And if you're not, that's a bit silly, really, because
it has to stop.
you have to
People
turn
just
whistle
rise
blower.
up and say no, enough. And
So yes, I've got my own vaccine issue this week. I've my daughter went to dance school over a week ago, and one of her friends came in. Oh, I just had my jab, and next day came in coughing like crazy and coughed over everybody. Anyway, by the end of the week, pretty much everyone has got this cough, including my daughter and now me. You know, this is a very clear vaccine shedding thing, vaccine shedding and spreading. And I was just like, you know, this is just not funny. It's really, really annoying. I don't know what they've put in this one. It feels a bit like whooping cough. So, yeah, I'm absolutely furious. My poor daughter, my other daughter, the little one, is, you know, coughing so hard that she's sick sometimes. It's really not very pleasant. And so you'll hear me chewing at the moment. I'm actually chewing nicotine. I've never smoked in my life, so it makes me a bit heady. But ages ago, I read that nicotine displaces the spike protein from competitively, competes for the same binding site, so it displaces it. So I thought I'd give it a go, and actually it does work rather well. It's meaning that I can talk to you without sort of constant coughing, and that I can get a decent night's sleep. So it does definitely help.
So, Lynn, when you think of them giving pregnant women the whooping cough vaccination, and that isn't a single vaccine, it's a multiple. When I was doing the public health degree, I'd looked it up, and I think from memory it was about 19 different vaccines in one. It might only be 9 now, but I know it's more than one. And their justification is, well, you know, people are exposed to loads of things all the time. Yeah, but they don't need that on top of that.
And it's not, directly into the bloodstream. Directly in, it's bypassing all the normal saliva, the stomach acid, all the linings, all the things that normally protect your body.
But you know how they've been pushing the MMR because supposedly people are getting measles. I bet they're going to start pushing the whooping cough vaccination to the pregnant women even more, and to other people even more. And I know when I was on an NHS Zoom meeting, I think it was last week or the week before, it was disgusting that their first priority was, why are people not taking up the vaccines for their children and things like that. And they were trying to vote on priority for NHS money and things like that. And this is their agenda. They just want to keep causing these harms. And if you watch the Richard Vobe's interview about the causes of illness, it's very enlightening, and we need to think differently about everything that we're doing.
Well, I think, yeah, but I mean,
Rogers.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Roger.
Yeah, well, actually, just talking about the Richard Vobe's interview, I did read that mighty tome of Dawn Lester and David Parker, and the book expressed the fact that they believed, along with Dr. Stefan Lanka, who won a case in court based on this, there is no such thing as a pathogenic contagious virus. They don't exist. And you know, if you read that book, you'll find out that all these so-called virus illnesses were caused by something else. For example,
EMFs.
What's the one that disables people's muscles? What's that one? What's that illness?
But also, when you think about the cholera,
polio, polio. that was caused by DDT.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was proved, and DDT was consequently withdrawn. And you know, if you really look at all the other so-called viral illnesses, you'll find there was some of the reason. And I don't know if you know about this, but in 1917, somebody called Milton Rosenau, MD, he did experiments with regard to this so-called Spanish flu. And basically, he mixed healthy people with sick people, and he couldn't make the healthy people sick.
No, it was spread by the vaccine for the Spanish flu.
But I know when I had glandular fever, supposedly, you know, even my friends weren't allowed to come and visit me, and supposedly it was that infectious, yet none of my brothers or sisters got it when I got it. My sister had it at least a year or so before, so yes, we had it within the family, but even that is just so wrongly put over to us. And I know it's more about stress and all the allergies that I used to have, and I was really reactive to E651, I think it is, monosodium glutamate. Then when I found out, well, it is actually a natural substance, but they artificialized it. And when you look at, I saw a thing of Bill Gates saying how he's doing all these artificial foods. And our bodies are not made to process that stuff, but we've got to keep raising our vibrations so that whatever we're exposed to, we will cope with.
Yeah, but I think I wasn't actually saying that there was a virus in this vaccine, Roger. I was just, there is a toxin, and it is replicable and spreadable or sheddable, one way or another. It can get from person to person. It doesn't, you know, it's not just affecting vaxxed people, is what I'm saying. It's, you know, I've picked it up off my daughter, who picked it up off her friend, and it is all traceable back to this flipping jab. There's something in it. It's quite a nasty cough. And that's, yeah, like you say, they're probably going to promote the whooping cough jab with it.
So, like I said on just quickly on Telegram yesterday, that I'm not religious, but this is getting very biblical.
It's quite, yeah. Oh, it is. It's Revelations. We are in the time of Revelations. It's amazing that, you know,
Well,
light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. The light is shining on the cabal, and they don't know what the hell to do. Oh, by the way, bye-bye, Jacob Rothschild. I'm sure we all miss you.
Although it could be that Revelation was the original psyop. But the thing I wanted to say about the toxins that Lynn mentioned is that you think that the main way that the body gets rid of toxins is through basically poop, but it's the opposite way round. The biggest way that the body gets rid of toxins is through the breath, second the skin, third urine, fourth poop. And so when you're in a room with someone and or a collection of people and you're breathing the same air, you're breathing in the toxins they breathe out. So this is the original conspiracy, breathing together, conspiring together. It's about being in the proximity of people. Now, hopefully my immune system is not going to allow me to succumb to
Yes, I was a bit lax. I was going off skiing and on aeroplanes and all sorts of things that I knew I shouldn't be doing, but I'm just hanging in there because I was going to have a good time on holiday. And then I came home and just you know, we all did.
Yeah,
because you can hold it off, but you know, at some point you're going to pay.
Yeah, so keeping that highest vibration of like nutrition and hydration, and I don't drink natural spring water, I drink natural mineral water from deep under the ground, which is natural living water. It's super pure.
In contact with
don't
the
have
earth's
fluoride
vibration.
don't have fluoride in my toothpaste anymore, and just trying to keep to the highest possible vibration so that you're not at a match to the nasties that are, you know, like almost like entity attachments that can kind of, like, if you're a bit down, it's easier for them to kind of hook in.
But let's also think what the MMR and all that sort of thing do. They don't actually stop you picking up any pathogen, if there is such a thing, but they do stop the expression of it in the skin. And, you know, toxins coming out through the skin is pretty much the most important thing for kids. It's that metal element. That's how the first stage of their life, the very first expression. So the way kids eliminate is often through the skin, With kids, it tends to be things like measles and chickenpox. By the time they're teenagers, it becomes acne.
Yeah.
So that's their way of expelling.
Yeah.
And they're very, very, they're trying very hard to stop that, aren't they, with kids? To
I
stop
know my
that.
homeopathic doctor told me that if you suppress a rash appearing on the skin, all you're doing is actually putting it into the internal organs, and that's what we don't want. So
They
you've still
do,
got
though.
it, but
They do,
you're
that's
not
what-
processing it. Yeah.
If the body is covered with spots, it's your body saying there's a problem.
And it's getting rid of it.
Yeah.
It's getting rid of it. You know, it's coming out through the skin. It's coming out with pus and all that sort of thing. It's not very pleasant to look at, but it is actually expelling it very efficiently.
Roger, do you want the final words? Because I'm conscious we're 6 minutes past 1, so let's.
Okay, well, a doctor called Luc Montagnier did experiments to prove that when people were detoxing by the methods that you just talked about, Rachel, the people who were in the area, in that vicinity, also started to detox in the same way. And that's because of vibrations, which are passed from body to body by the cells in the body. There are cells in the body which communicate with other living cells around. So
which is in fact what we think viruses are. They're packages of dead material from the body. They're not pathogens themselves at all. They're packages saying how.
And this takes us to the 100th monkey syndrome, where
absolutely 100%.
and as we keep getting these messages out, we'll get those 100 monkeys or whatever equivalence that is, and that's the seeds that we need to keep dropping. We are getting more and more people on board. Yeah,
absolutely. Any last words, Simon?
No, I had to make a special effort to be on this call. I'm glad I did. It was
It's interesting, isn't it?
Thank you.
I'm just going to say that I think the evidence is all that it's crumbling down. The MHRA is starting to be getting very upset. Someone's jumping ship already. Doctors have stopped taking the vaccines. Rishi Sunak is trying to hang the medical profession out, and also the MHRA. I mean, they're trying to say they didn't know, the MHRA didn't tell them, the medical profession didn't tell them. What a load of absolute... Anyway, so it's the illusion's coming down. We're peering behind the curtain now.
Yeah.
So we're just going to ride the wave, surf it, guys.
And just
surf
keep
it.
going, just keep going.
Enjoy it. It's going to be a great ride.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great ride.
Yay! We're unstoppable.
Absolutely.
And also just to really be aware that every great transformation and movement in the history of mankind started with a small group of people. Doesn't need millions of people. That's a false matrix program. Don't underestimate the power of small groups of people, or to put that in the positive, let's appreciate the power of small groups of people who are relentless in their pursuit of truth and transformation. And that's
the only thing that's ever changed the world, and Margaret Mead said that.
Okay, lots of love, and thank you. And we're going to put this out, and I will share it on my channel as well. It feels like an important, powerful conversation. People are watching these conversations. They are inspiring people. And so please, if you're watching this and you've resonated with what we said, please share it far and wide. Let's get the message out. Let's create conscious awareness around all of these things we're discussing. And let's get to the 100th monkey, where suddenly, boom, there's a quantum shift and everyone gets it and wakes up from the sleepwalk.
It is going to be a big flip. It's going to be brilliant.
Can I just end on a positive note, if this is it? And that is, I've been pledged £500 for my campaign. I haven't got it in my hand yet, so it may or may not actuate, but I've been promised it by somebody whom I believe to be reliable. Anyway, so that's...
We're past the manifesto, Rog. We love you, and well done, and thank you to whoever that person is for supporting Roger, because it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference to have support in whatever way that comes, whether that's kind words, whether that's cash, whether that's a vote. whether
waves
that's
of
a
love.
positive comment on a YouTube video, it all helps, and it helps us standing to know that we're not alone and that we're supported and appreciated in our journey. Yeah. So lots of love. Thanks to that person that supported you, Raj, and well done.
Okay, can we stop recording?
Okay, we're going to stop the recording. Give everyone a wave. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Can we stop recording?